Finally, we have a proper snow here in Michigan, and I get a chance to test out the new winter tires and just give some further proof as to how capable the BRZ is in the wintertime. As you can see, we are in full winter mode with the Compomotive TH2 rally wheels. I have my new WinterContact SI Continental tires on. They seem to be doing a pretty good job so far. And yeah, let's go for a drive. This should be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how this does through the deep stuff. We're basically bottoming out through a lot of the snow on the main roads. So luckily it hasn't had a chance to freeze, so it's not going to damage anything, but it is pretty deep out there. So the BRZ is at stock ride height. It's actually riding just a tad lower this year, very, very small amount due to the smaller tires that I have on here. I'm running 195 55 16s. Stock tire size should be 195 60 16s. This was a lighter weight, cheaper, and I think it improves gear ratios just a little bit for normal driving. But I do lose a little bit of ground clearance as a result. So far though, this tire has performed really, really well in the snow, and before today, it performed fantastic on just kind of the daily commute. So even without any snow in the dry, it is very, very usable. It's really responsive. It's a whole lot better than the Blizzaks that I was used to driving on before. It's a pretty impressive tire. It really does a lot of things very well. And as you can see, it's got pretty decent snow traction. I've got a lot of grip in cornering. Braking is pretty decent. The trick to daily driving a sports car in the winter, especially through the deep snow, is putting skinny tires on. I remember when I had 225s on the BRZ, and I had trouble getting through anything, any type of snow that was more than just a couple inches deep. I'd have to load the car up with sandbags. I do have one sandbag in the rear just for good measure tonight. But honestly, I don't need it. Lovely noise there from the highway. This is definitely the roughest out here right now. So just to compare these to the Blizzaks that I used to have on this car, traction in snow and the deep stuff and even just ice seems to be about the same. I'm not really noticing that much of a difference. Where I am noticing the difference is in the dry and in the wet. Wet traction is hugely improved, and I have just a lot more confidence and predictability in the dry. I feel like I can really use these tires to their full potential without getting squeamish or just getting a little bit sideways, especially in the wet. These have directional tread patterns, so I think that probably has something to do with it, whereas the Blizzak WS80s, you can switch them around on just about anything. Overall, there's a pretty decent amount of traction out here. It's just kind of deep. That's the only problem. Let's hang back and see if we can have a little bit of fun on this ramp. Super predictable, really easy to control. Yeah, it's like there isn't even snow on the ground. It's awesome. That's the thing about winter tires is this week I have a couple press cars, both of which are all-wheel drive, both of which have all-season tires on them. And one is a Mazda CX-5, the other is a Durango. And you know, they do okay, especially the CX-5. It has just a lot of traction, probably mostly due to its tires, and it has a nice low center of gravity, which I think helps a lot too. But you know, none of them really compare to the cornering abilities and the braking abilities of even just a lightweight rear-wheel drive car with snow tires. It's amazing how well something can handle that isn't really meant for the snow. It has limited ground clearance. This is a blast to drive in the wintertime. I love it. Honestly, it's kind of one of my favorite times of year to drive this car. Rally mode. It's just very controllable out here. You can kind of get into a rut and ride that traction out. Luckily, traction out here is pretty consistent. It's not too icy yet. Alright, we're getting tossed around a little bit there in those ruts. This is probably the worst of it over here. I think if I were over in the far left or middle lanes, it'd be just like it is here, but in the right lanes you've got quite a bit of, it's quite a mess. Ooh, yeah. Gosh, this car is fun. Alright, let's take a right here. And we'll show you what it's like through some really deep stuff. This is why I love Michigan. You get 4 seasons. And honestly, we haven't had a winter like this in a few years. We get a few snows occasionally, but stuff like this is pretty few and far between out here. And I think it's going to be like this all week. Alright, so it gets pretty deep up here. You've got some areas where people have crossed over. It's probably, I'd say, about 6 or 7 inches deep right here. Well below the ground clearance. And the car just has no problem powering through. Let's even come to a stop and accelerate out. No problem. As long as you roll out slowly, keep the wheels spinning, no issues whatsoever. And that's a pretty decent amount of snow. Finally getting some plows out here. Things are getting flattened out. driving in conditions like this does give you a pretty good crash course in throttle management and balancing the car on and off throttle and counter steering. It's a good time. I would say in a rear-wheel drive car you have just a little bit more adjustability than you would, definitely more than a front-wheel drive, and I'd say even argue more than an all-wheel drive car, just because you can really balance the car on and off the throttle throughout the corners. With an all-wheel drive car, you're going to tend to push unless if you're on throttle, and by the time you get the car balanced or get it rotated, get it sideways, you're going to be going really, really fast, and you really have to stay committed to your throttle pedal, otherwise you're just going to understeer off the road. But with a rear-wheel drive car, you have a little bit more leeway in the way that you can balance the car around a corner. And with front-wheel drive, it's hopeless. You're just going to understeer everywhere. You're basically just relying on your tires at that point. Alright guys, well I think that's probably going to wrap it up for this video. I don't really have much more to add. The BRZ can make it through the winter, no problem. I think this is my third winter in this car, and it's done really, really quite well. Actually, this might be my fourth winter in this car, because I bought this in 2014. 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, this is my fourth winter. Good times. Alright, well thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later.